Hey, Viking fans, we brought some dude off of Twitter whose Twitter handle is devoted to a guy with an 88 quarterback rating. Let's go, let's go. Cue the music. Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I brought John Fye, also known, AKA, also known as Not Nick Mullins. And we've got Johnny Football with a new illustrious background. It's getting bigger. Let's go. Let's skull. Hey, John, tell us where we can find you, man.
Well, right now I'm in a hotel room in El Paso if you guys are feeling adventurous.
All right. He's an undisclosed location in El Paso, but you can find him at Zim Reapers. The description, or his handles in the description below. So go follow him. Get that follower count up. I got a couple comments already. Evening, guys. McAndrews, thanks for showing up, man. As usual. And Mary Fisk, our Thursday devotional with Mary Fisk, our spirit leader, the one that rings true with John's shirt here, the hopeless optimist, Mary Fisk. Thanks for showing up. And of course, hey, Mary. All right. So yeah, I think we had a little dust up on Twitter. So I was like, hey, want to come on our show? And so you're the first person who ever is accepted that after a brief confrontation on Twitter. So I was glad to have you come on. Tell us. We like to start out with the first time guests and telling us, how did you become a Viking fan? How did it happen, man?
I had a weird journey. So I'm from upstate New York. It's Buffalo Bills territory. You raise sort of what your parent, my dad was a big Bills fan. Then you get to a certain point where you're like, you know what, I have the right to choose here. But I kind of fell out of love with the NFL through high school and all that. I played football, but didn't really care that much about the NFL or football in general. And it wasn't until I think 2006, Minnesota played at Buffalo. Very good friend of mine, Ken. He's on Twitter. We were going to a game with our Bills buddies, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be the heel. So I dressed in purple. I had the horns on. We talked a ton of smack. The Vikings lost because Bernard Berrien couldn't catch freaking COVID if he tried. And yeah, I kind of took off from there. I just got kind of obsessed with the team. And then they're I hate to say we're lovable losers, but we're lovable losers, man. It is what it is.
Well, I mean, I'm going to disagree a little bit there about lovable losers. It just came out that we jumped up from 6th to 3rd all time. We're lovable losers in definitely in the playoffs. I guess you could say that.
You gotta love the numbers.
Yeah, regular season though, we're always good enough to every once in a while to get there, and oftentimes, get there at 2009, 98. I think it was 2001. We get there and then, we disappoint. So I guess lovable losers does go off. I don't know how much you know about the history. Obviously, you probably caught on and becoming a Viking fan. We're the first team to go to 4 Super Bowls, and you're upstate New York, and we're the first team to lose 4 Super Bowls. So the Buffalo Bills, thank God, came and stole our thunder and lost 4 in a row. What was it like growing up around that?
I don't remember. I don't remember the first Super Bowl. I'm almost 40, so I was probably at bedtime at that time. But I remember the last couple with Dallas, especially the 56 to I can't remember what it was, and it was just like a funeral. And again, like when you're kind of brought up as a fan as a kid, you buy into it because it's kind of the norm. But as you get older and you become a little more cynical, like I tend to be, I don't really care that much about the Bills. And what also helped too is the Randy Moss era just made football a lot of fun to watch for obvious reasons. And then remember what game came out it was like Sony Dreamcast, and it was like it was Randy Moss on the cover, right? It was like NFL 2K or something, and just to play that game and have Culpepper or Cunningham throwing bombs to Randy Moss in that game was kind of that simple stuff like that kind of sucks you in.
Yeah, I still got Culpepper's Madden disc and cover, so I still have that. So maybe one day I'll meet him and have him autograph it. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I played the hell out of that. But I also had it on a computer too. So Yeah, those are fun times. So is that like your fondest memory then? Is Randy Moss joining the league and blowing it up?
I myself and my buddy Kenny, we were at the Miracle game. That's my fondest memory to this point.
Oh, okay. So you were there. Yeah, I actually interviewed Greg Coleman and brought up the picture of him pointing to the end zone, and he brought up the fact that he once had a teammate run the wrong way, so that's why he was pointing. Uh,
We were putting our stuff back on because you're going to take the long walk to the train, and it was just kind of like it's setting in. Like I at the time I lived in Kentucky, drove all the way there like 11 and a half hours. My buddy flew up. He lives in Florida now, so we kind of met there. And you're just putting your stuff back. I had my oldest son who, I poisoned him with the Vikings obsession. He probably is more of a fan than I am now. And we were just like, this sucks, because that team was special and it was a team of destiny vibes. And then the play happened, and you're just kind of, unfortunately, it went away from us. We were toward the opposite end zone. So when it happened, you're kind of like, did he just catch that ball? And then it just turns into pandemonium. And all the Saints fans that were chirping us, that whole fourth quarter, were just gone, just vanished, disappeared, which is probably smart for them.
Kamara on the sideline, I still burned in my memory of him eating like Laffy Taffy or something, and laughing, and then Peyton doing the clapping and shit. Yep. Oh God, that was wonderful after that happened.
It's kind of a weird thing though, because I have the newspapers. Like that next morning when I got the newspapers, I have the towel from the game, and I actually had a Case Keenum jersey. But I don't know. And I have a shirt that says Minneapolis Miracle, but it's like that stuff just kind of stays locked away because I don't know. It's kind of like it's hard to celebrate. You're celebrating. I mean, how would you place that season? Would they finish in 4th or 5th place if you were going to rank teams from start to finish? It's like celebrating that one play when the following week you just get absolutely destroyed by the Eagles. I'm waiting for the Vikings to win a Super Bowl so I can put all that stuff on the wall and like, yeah, man, that play I was
be proud of it.
Like,
yeah.
Until they win the whole thing, celebrating a game that came 2 games before the Super Bowl just is silly.
Now, hey, Johnny, where were you at? I never did ask you. Something I don't think's come up with us was where were you, or what were you doing, or where were you when that happened?
I was in my basement, face palming it. But the TV was still
on. What
the
kids call it these days? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just, but yeah, I remember most the Sean Payton reaction because in 2009 the Super Bowl fell on my birthday, and so that NFC Championship game killed me because it was going to be a Vikings Super Bowl on my birthday that year, and of course the fallout with the Bounty Gate stuff. I still hold that against Sean Payton. I know it was some of the defensive guys and whatever, but
yeah, I was gonna be in Miami in a layover on that Super Bowl Sunday, so I was like pretty fucking excited, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Minnesota Miracle. Well, that was 2009, but yeah, Minnesota Miracle. My TV shut off. I was in the huddle. It timed out like 4 minutes. It was on for 4 hours straight, and it shut off in the huddle before the play started. So when I turned it back on, it showed up in a little square in the corner of my TV, and I'm like, "What the hell? I don't know how to use this TV." And I was like, "God, there must be a lot of Saints fans there because the cheering." And then I saw really little all the Vikings jumping on each other in the end zone, and that's how I found out. And I instantly started weeping like a baby, as usual, when shit like that happens. But well, let's go into this season, right? I mean, your Twitter is devoted to Nick Mullins, and I do believe you're not a big fan of Kirk Cousins, and tell us why.
Okay, so real quick, the Nick Mullins story. I was at Chicago. I was at Chicago O'Hare at a layover, heading to Minneapolis to watch the one playoff game that we just got done watching. And I was sitting there. I have this black. It's nothing I've ever seen in a store, but Nike makes it, and it's like a Vikings sweatshirt or like a pullover shirt. And people are kind of looking at me while I was eating at an Applebee's. And I'm like, why are these people staring at me? And I was talking to my wife, and then I got up to pay and leave, and a girl comes up to me and grabs me by the arm, and she's like, "Are you Nick Mullins?" And I'm like, the Vikings quarterback? And she's like, "You're not, are you?" I'm like, "Nope, he's much younger than me, but I appreciate it." And I walked away. So that's how the not Nick Mullins thing started.
Okay. That explains a lot then.
I don't look like Nick Mullins. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You don't at all. He's a lot like black hair, and
he's got a rounder
are you tall?
face.
Are you like, he's like 6'1"? How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm 6'2". So I mean, there's
about the same height then.
I don't know. I thought maybe the shirt I was wearing is something that the players wear. I don't know. Like it was kind of an odd thing.
I used to go to spring training games when I was in my 20s, and people would come up to me and ask for. I was much skinnier. This is 100 pounds ago. And yeah, I would get asked for autographs because I was wearing Twins gear, and I had a baseball bag because it was loaded with shit I wanted to get autographed. And yeah, I would get asked all the time for autographs, and yeah, I was weird.
but so Kirk Cousins. So I was on the wagon, then I jumped off. If you look up Cousin Kirk on Twitter, that used to be me. I got banned. Cousin Kirk 8. I've been banned from Twitter more times than I've got kids. And yeah, I was pretty hard charging once upon a time. Anybody that said anything about Kirk Cousins, I got on the defensive and talked a lot of shit and would eventually get banned for it or suspended enough times to get banned. And then one day it just gets to a point where I got to the same point with Zimmer. I mean, my handle now is Zim Reapers. It was, in honor of those Zim defenses. And then after a while, it just became kind of a smart ass thing to kind of troll the people who wanted Zim gone in the worst way. But I got to a point with Zimmer where it's like I was a huge fan, like a lot of us were. Because I remember where we were at when they hired Zimmer and how like just undisciplined and lifeless the team felt under Leslie Frazier. Then Zimmer comes in, it's like, yeah, we need this guy. But it got to a point where it's like, that they've peaked. That's it. I just can't watch this anymore. They need to make a change. And then you kind of start to really, really resent that person. And it's not fair to Kirk. Kirk is a great guy. If you got Super Bowls based on how decent of a human being you were, he has a dynasty. He's a great person. It has nothing to do with him as a person. He has his numbers. He is a guy who has shown us he can do a lot of great things, but they have peaked with Kirk Cousins. I'm not convinced it's going to happen. He's not getting any younger. And for the love of God, I'm ready for a new argument with Vikings fans.
I made the point last night that I wish 2 points. I said I wish he would retire so I'd have to stop talking about him. Although I do believe he's a good quarterback, and I wanted to get him extended one more year and then have a quarterback take over. I'm just more of a timing issue. But yeah, I was like, I wish he was never born, so I never had to talk about him in the first place. Because I've had 4-hour sessions, and another 3-hour session on a different show. Because we got a lot of people in the chat and a lot of people I associate with that literally just they think he's trash. And I know you probably don't think that. You actually were a fan of him or a supporter at one time. I was actually the opposite. I didn't want him. I didn't want the move in 18. He couldn't win big games in 19, and then he started winning fourth quarter comebacks in 2021. He had 4. He should have had 6. It wasn't a fumble and a missed field goal. And then last year happened, and it was absolutely crazy. That we had so many fourth quarter comebacks, tied an NFL record. Did that kind of put you like one toe back on the wagon, and then the 4th and 8 happened, and you jumped back off, or how'd that happen?
Yeah, you got it. The Kirko thing was great. I mean, it's how could you not be entertained by that? The fact that he plays into that whole dad nerd vibe is great. It's amazing to me. I mean, someday there needs to be a documentary about it. Like one guy whose entire career is always defined by his inability to just rise to the moment. And 4th and 8 was the moment. And it's insane to me because it's like, dude, he did it. He did it against Buffalo, 4th and 18. Like desperation kicks in. You heave the ball up to your best guy. And you just hope that he does what he does. And where was that energy on 4th and 8? I mean, you can argue over, well, there wasn't enough time I think we all agree that some mobility would be helpful at quarterback, especially when you're just so terrible at putting together offensive lines. I mean, now the tackles are set, but the interior line is like the size of a junior varsity football team in the state of Alabama. So it's I don't know. I just feel like it's time to move on. I think we've seen the Vikings at their peak with Kirk Cousins.
So are you gonna watch the football thing with the 3 quarterbacks? I think you tweeted about it once, or I might have been mistaken.
Oh yeah.
I think you said the winner, the loser, and the. I was wondering which one was the loser, and because you didn't specify, because it was Mahomes, Cousins, and Garoppolo, right? No. What's his name? There's 3 guys.
Someone like really shitty.
Atlanta's quarterback, Hawaii.
Mariota.
Oh, so those 3 guys.
The winner, the loser,
so which one was the? It was like the winner, the loser, and the trash, or something like that.
The winner, the loser, the quitter, because Mariota basically walked out on Atlanta this year.
Oh, okay, so he's the quitter. I was wondering. I was like, is Kirk the quitter? I guess I only follow the Vikings, so I didn't really pay attention to what he was doing.
Yeah, they had the conversation where they were going to this past season put Ritter out there because like, hey, the season's lost. We got to see what Ritter can do, and he basically left it. He left the team. He's like, I'm done. But I'll watch it. I mean, it's football. It's interesting. I'm sure you'll see Kirk at home with the kids and Julie. And by the way, people think it's kind of weird that I know Kirk Cousins' wife's name. Like outsiders, people are like, how do you know your quarterback's wife's name? I'm like, how do you not know your quarterback's wife's name? Are you really a fan if you don't know your quarterback's family? But it'll be interesting, I'm sure. But I think, but technically, I said the winner, the loser, and of course, I say to be a shithead. But he technically is don't take this the wrong way, people, because again, personally, he's a great guy, but he's technically a loser. Historically, he does not have the hardware, high school, college, or pro, and that's okay. Most
he's got a Big Ten title, but
that's it. I think he was. What was it? Was it the bowl game they played? Was it the bowl game they played against Alabama that year?
Big Ten's wasn't decided by a playoff or by a Big Ten championship at that time. So it was I think it was given to 2 teams. There was no Big Ten championship game back then.
But there was a game, and I don't remember the same season. They played Alabama in a bowl
Rose
game.
Bowl.
He had one big. He had a big. He had a big bowl win. I know, but because I had this discussion with Purple Pocket Podcast, so I got up right now because he said the same thing one time. He's never won anything. And I said, well, except for a Big Ten championship. So yeah, that's the only reason I know this. Otherwise, I would have never looked it up because I'm not worried about what he did in college. I'm worried about what he does now. But yeah, I mean, he did take a step forward. We did win 13 games this year with the 31 ranked defense. Are you curious at all? And I'm just asking. And Johnny Football, anytime you want to jump in and ask a question, please feel free. This is help me out here because I know you got a lot more interesting technical shit, and he seems to know a lot about other teams in the football. So feel free to fire away anytime. But with 13 wins, 30 on a 31st ranked defense, historically. Worst, gave up 10 400-yard games and one in the playoffs. Holy crap. That was kind of 2 years in a row with a really historically bad defense. You feel a little bit at least optimistic, like this is the first time he's got the same play caller 2 years in a row with us, the same offensive lines playing together 2 years in a row. Do you feel, at least, are you, I know you're not hopelessly optimistic. That's an ironic shirt, but are you at least a little bit optimistic?
I was pretty positive. I was pretty positive after the Giants game. Honestly, I did not feel great about that Giants playoff game. It's just as fun as the team was to watch.
I was picking us to lose by 2 touchdowns the next week.
Yeah. You don't want to admit it because you just don't. But I mean, you also have to be realistic. But it felt like a lot of that season last year was there was a lot of paradoxical things that happened that season last year, and that's okay. I think you're going to get a new energy, new vibe, and you're going to get some motivation from some players just because of a lot of the newness. So I will be very curious to see in year 2, after the honeymoon phase is over with, what happens, especially with a lot of the players being the same. I don't see 13 wins. I do think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but we're probably not going to see a lot of those zany finishes that we saw last year. I mean, that was unusual, but
I made this point last night. We could be a better team and have less wins. Both could be true.
Yeah. Those fourth quarters are going to be tough to replicate.
Absolutely.
And that Giants, from a schematic standpoint too, that Giants game was a terrible matchup. I mean, any defensive coordinator like Wink Martindale is one of Kirk's nightmares. I mean, when you saw Jonathan Gannon dial up to 0 when we played Philly, that was something that, especially the interior of the offensive line, wasn't able to deal with. Kirk wasn't able to adjust to. So I didn't like that particular matchup coming in. And I mean, putting 24 points up was a pretty decent showing for the offense, frankly. But I didn't like that matchup one bit. And it's those type of defenses that have really been a thorn in Kirk Cousins' side. But we've got one of them now. We'll kind of be able to throw that back at teams with the way Brian Flores operates. So I guess a similar question to Dave's, but what is your outlook for 2023 when you consider that on the opposite side of the ball, where the defense a few times bent and didn't break and kind of allowed us to win games, but my feeling is the defense might actually win us some games this upcoming season, and that might lighten the load a little bit. What are your thoughts there?
The trenches still worry me. That's interior offensive line. I know we're like, hey, Bradbury, we know him. He's got continuity. Let's go ahead and bring him back. Probably not the best I mean, he is the best option. What are you going to do? Go out and there's just not another guy out there to go get. Kind of feel the same way with the defensive line. That interior D line. I mean, I like Harry. I like Harry, but I just don't think he's. I don't know. I mean, they got gashed. And I would love to be in a position to take a Jalen Carter type who can just be an absolute wrecking ball in the middle of a D line and just totally throw off another team's game plan, because I think it's the problem we have, and we saw in the Giants game. They're able to just control the tempo when they have the ball, run it right down the Vikings'
drive, 12-minute drive, something like that.
Yep.
Their last scoring drive. Yeah.
And you're keeping JJ off the field. You're keeping You're keeping Kirk and Dalvin off the field. And if you go back to those teams that we had, I'll even go back to like 2018, for example. That defense, the 2017, 2018 era, they were brutal up the middle. That defense, Linval and Everson coming off the edge, and think about that playoff win in 2019 against the Saints. And what's ironic about it is the reason the enabler of that game was Zimmer at last minute decided, you know what, I'm going to play the defensive ends inside, and threw that little wrinkle at the Saints offense. And the Saints just had totally threw just a perfect example of how in between the tackles, if you can hit a team in the mouth, you're going to totally throw off what they're planning to do.
That's what I think with Ed Dontel. I mean, Zim mixed it up. He manufactured sacks. We still had bad defenses because we gave up yards like crazy, but we still led the league. One of the top teams in the league in sacks, and so he manufactured with Danielle Hunter out. We were second in sacks by the end of the year in 2021, even though we were historically bad with giving up points in the last 2 minutes of each half. I mean, historically, ever since that record was taken, we had the worst. We were ranked worst in out of 400 and some teams, throughout the 20 years that's been a stat. But, it's like you mentioned Harrison Smith. He was in the Pro Bowl the year before. Kendricks was ranked 70th best player in the NFL before the 21 season. And, these are, and all of a sudden in 2022, they're shit. I really put a lot of weight on Ed Donatel not doing like Zimmer, not being Flores, who when asked, are you a 3-4 or a 4-3, and he goes, who are we playing? I'm going to put my players in the best positions possible. I think he's going to move people around and take advantage of it and not be so vanilla. And here's my defense. We're going to be 7 yards off the ball and we're going to back up. I will say it over and over again. You cannot run fast running backwards. And that's what we were like. How much do you think is Ed Donatel, and how much do you think was we did get rid of a Kendricks. I think he's going to thrive in another team. I think he's going to rebound. I think he was just didn't want to. I don't think he was willing to take a pay cut, like Harrison Smith was, and we went with a guy that was cheaper and brought Hicks back. Do you think it was? You think it was more Ed Donatel, or do you think it was more the players? If you had to guess.
I do put some onus on the players. I mean, execution is part of it.
Right.
Been very critical of Cam Dantzler. It's like, Cam, buddy,
he's gone.
You're running backwards against the Lions. You know what I mean? Like, of course they're gonna. If your instinct is to run into the end zone on the last second play, yeah, you're probably going to give up a hitch touchdown for the win. So, but I will agree. Danielle Hunter. I mean, I have zero experience coaching defense at the NFL level. Danielle Hunter dropping back into coverage is stupid. I mean, it's dumb.
I don't think we'll see that this year. I think we'll put him in situations where he's not going to be doing that.
No, and no, Kendricks is. I don't think Kendricks is a 3-4. No kidding, right? At this point, he's not a 3-4 linebacker. He's not. He needs to be in the middle of a.
Which is weird because he was a 3-4 linebacker in college.
At this point, at his age, and just what he does best in the NFL, he just needs to man the middle of the field. And it's weird because it felt like he went from being like one of the most underrated players in football to just like a slow old guy in a matter of like a year or two. And you're like, wait, what? Was Zimmer really that much of a cog to this team? Or because Zimmer didn't forget how to coach. We got stale with Zimmer. We all agree with that. And I think Zimmer just never got over the fact that his GM went rogue and went a route with quarterback that he preferred not to go with. And it's funny because the first year under Cousins, I really feel like Zimmer tried. They threw a lot of balls. I mean, it wasn't – I know DeFilippo was like a slow adult as an offensive coordinator, but they did throw a lot of passes. Year two, they were like one of the worst in the NFL as far as pass attempts. But they went back to the Zimmer style of football. And then there was probably, I'm guessing, some strife over, hey, man, we're spending a lot of money on a quarterback who can sling it. Why are we running the ball exclusively and not – well, because this is my team, that's what I want to do. And then the wheels just totally fall off, right? So I don't care for the Zimmer bashing. I think we're a little over it. I do like what KOC's doing, and I'm jumping around here, but part of me worries about the players coach. Because, again, Leslie Frazier was a players coach. Great guy. It was a relief at first because we were used to that prick, we're used to that prick Brad there, Chili. He was kind of an a-hole. And it's like, all right, get him out of here, get the nicer coach in. The players like him and they want to play hard for him. And then after a while, it's like, man, they're a soft team. We need the hard guy back in here. Now it's like the pendulum's going back and forth. So I worry about KOC only because I'm scarred from, that whole Leslie experience.
Yeah, it was funny that as one of the very few interim coaches to keep his job after taking over, and I think that reflects on the Wilfs a little bit. They were probably like, "Oh, the players like him. It's a good vibe. Let's keep him." Like, I mean, you just saw, and this might not be a great decision on their part, but you just saw the Panthers let Steve Wilkes walk after really firing that Carolina team up towards the back end of the season, bringing Frank Reich in. We'll see how that pans out for them. But I think the part of the difference with KOC is, well, you've obviously got the defensive offensive coach difference there. I think he is a little bit more, I don't think he's quite as deferential as Leslie might have been. I mean, he's still calling the offense. He's still done a pretty good job putting a staff together for all the gripes we have with Donatel. And I think a lot of the stuff from last year was schematic, was reaction time more than it was just physically losing a step. But I think that's also just a reflection of Donatel not bending to what his players do best at all and just saying, hey, you got to learn what I got to teach, and then we're going to figure it out. And I
That's
think
old school. Yep.
Exactly. I think Flores will be a little bit more organic in that way. I mean, especially on passing downs on the defensive side, I think we're going to feel a lot more comfortable with what Flores dials up than, sitting on your couch and saying, all right, here comes some quarter, half, and the Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks are going to be covering hash to hash and they're going to be helpless against the crossers. They're going to be, who the hell was it? Isaiah Hodgins is gonna catch 3 wide open crossers against us in a playoff game, because you're from everybody's couch. We can see the same play call coming.
And that's why I felt like Kendricks was like, oh my God, I got 2 guys crossed in front of me. They're both open
all the time.
And
all
so
the
you're like,
time.
what do I do?
Hey,
it was embarrassing.
From sitting at the bank watching that game, and that's why I love watching games in person, where you can see sort of that all 22 view. The field is just as wide open from the bleachers as it looks on TV. It's just like what, the middle of the field? Why is the middle of the field so wide open?
Let me address some of the chat. Skull for Life. I don't have any merch yet. I will eventually. I have given away a Chuck Foreman autographed jersey. He's actually going to be in Fort Lauderdale April, I think, coming up here pretty soon. And I've given away bobbleheads. On one of my shows, we give away some Justin Jefferson rookie cards and things like that. But yeah, stick around. We'll have more in the future. Dave is the man. I appreciate that, Skull Mafia. We disagree completely on a lot of things, but this guy's sticking with me. I love it. I appreciate it. Hey, let's spice some things up here, John. This is how we met, or this is how I reached out to you. I posted this. We finally get cap room in 2024 and 25 that Kirk supposedly kept us from having. And I said Rick Spielman because he basically is the reason why contracts were done the way they were. And our goal is to turn it over to Will Levis. Give me the vet in $200 million in 2025 in cap room over a guy with a floor of Christian Ponder any day. Extend Kirk, let the rookie sit. I'm all for drafting a rookie. I'm just saying have him sit.
Yeah.
A little later, because we had some back and forth, you went and posted, if you think Kwesi can't evaluate rookie QBs because Spielman couldn't, while also assuming every rookie QB is Christian Ponder, then you're fucking idiot. So I asked you to come on my show. So let's talk. This is my segue into our draft talk. I was saying he's the floor of Christian Ponder. I didn't say, because one of the reasons they both had good junior years. Actually, Christian Ponder had 9 games, 2,700 yards. And then senior year, both these guys kind of regressed. Ponder goes on to the Senior Bowl, wins the MVP. Levis ducks the Senior Bowl. And there's some he seems to be falling down the draft board a little bit to where people think we'll draft, we're going to go get him kind of things. Are you a Will Levis fan or?
Oh, no, Dave.
Okay, Dave. I was wondering.
No, Dave.
You jumped on me a little bit there.
No. First of all, don't feel singled out because there's a million idiots all over Twitter that are claiming that Spielman couldn't, therefore Kwesi shouldn't, and that's wrong. Spielman, it's hilarious actually to see Spielman giving QB takes on whatever media outlet hires him now because
I heard on NFL Network team, too.
33rd, just a really quick before you. 33rd team today posted their top 5 NFC quarter. Did you guys see that? Top 5 NFC quarterbacks posted by 33rd team. It went Jalen Hurts, sure. Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, and then Stafford. And it was a former 9-year NFL vet who works for 33rd team now, and that was his top 5 in the NFC entering 2023. And that's where Spielman's at right now. Not a lot of great takes coming out of that little outfit.
I'm not a Levis fan. Again, I watch a ton of college football. The fact that Levis had people call it a regression. I saw some defending his season because Kentucky had a weak supporting cast. It's not his fault. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. He makes a lot of bonehead decisions on a collegiate field, and that worries me as a guy who's an aspiring professional where it's a much faster, much more complicated game. But I don't think – I wouldn't compare Levis to Ponder because Ponder – my biggest knock on Ponder –
I just said he was a floor of Ponder. Like, that would be the best. That would be, like, the worst he'd be.
Yeah, Ponder had anxiety. You don't draft quarterbacks in the first round who play with anxiety. It's just that's kind of –
he threw a lot of fucking balls.
Yeah. And I don't – it's funny because going back, I don't – it's like could you imagine if Twitter was in its heyday when Ponder was the quarterback? Oh,
Jesus. I was who is Christian Ponder?
And every year there's that whole, you can find it on YouTube, just just disappointed Jets fans when they're announcing their first round pick year after year after year after year. We had a period of that where you're like, okay, we're up. Christian Ponder, like, what the? Are you kidding? Who? I knew he was. Wasn't a huge fan, but Spielman panic move. Big Spielman panic move. Now at the time, I wanted Jake Locker, so I'm not gonna,
he had one good year, I think, didn't he?
That class was rough, wasn't it? Blaine Gabbert too. Like it was just a lot of. Yeah.
The best guy was the Cincinnati guy. He's with Carolina now. Cincinnati quarterback. He was he was the Saints last year. I'm bad with names. That's why I'm asking you guys. Dalton. He drafted him in the second round, and he was the best quarterback out of that group, which was crazy.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, he went on to win going to the playoffs like three years in a row until Zimmer left as their D coordinator. But yeah, is there quarterbacks you like? Are you? I would be pretty excited. I don't want to go trade 3 first-round picks and go up get 8 or 15, probably in more than 3 picks. But I would be at least excited about Anthony Richardson, even though he's only played like 14 games.
It'd be exciting because you consider man, if this guy can actually do
holy shit, like his talent.
Right, and there's a lot of comparisons to like Jamarcus Russell, for example. Jamarcus Russell had a ton of talent coming out of college, but Jamarcus Russell's problem was he was a child. I think he was a drunk too. So he didn't study, didn't take the game seriously, didn't anything. So if Anthony Richardson can be a student of the game and kind of take a Josh Allen approach to improving himself, like Josh Allen, remember how we were poking fun at Josh Allen? It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing when Minnesota lost to him at home.
Yeah, he won that game pretty much single-handedly, I felt.
Yeah, but that offseason he paired up with, I think, Jordan Palmer, improved his accuracy, got a little more experience, maybe a little more level-headed, and next thing you know, he's in MVP conversation. Now, kind of interesting to see what happens with him because this year in some areas he kind of regressed to include this season.
He didn't have a good playoff.
No, and a lot of red zone INTs, which is concerning.
Do you think it was had to do with Dayball leaving him?
It could be because some coaches I think maybe are more of a voice of reason to a quarterback, but I think Josh Allen is just one of those quarterbacks who's so talented. We see it a lot with college quarterbacks. Bryce Young, for example, they're so talented, they're so used to making stuff happen that they just don't know when the time is to quit on a play and just take the sack or throw it away, or they're just so stubborn. And Mahomes, everybody tries to be Mahomes because Mahomes is just like a wizard when it comes to broken plays and making weird throws from a.
I compare him to Aaron Rodgers a lot.
Yeah, and Favre to some degree was the same way. It's just I think Favre threw way more interceptions.
NFL record, yeah.
But Favre was like that too. And you kind of need that maverick gunslinger, and that's like something I think aside from mobility, we've all sort of like, please, Kirk Cousins, can you wake up tomorrow somewhat of a maverick and just heave ho? Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about the potential to throw a pick. Just Jefferson's down there. Just throw it up. He'll go get it.
And that's what I liked about KOC. Like last year, before the season, I think Purple Daily interviewed KOC, a great interview, and they brought up the fact that once you want Kirk to like throw a few more interceptions, and he says, we didn't win a game in I think he said November last year with the Rams. They lost 3, had a bye and they lost 3 games, and he said because we turned the ball over, so we had to get back to not turning the ball over. So he wasn't like, hey, let's throw more interceptions, but I like the fact that he was able to dial back Stafford in his gunslinger mentality, and then he was able to get Kirk Cousins to be more of a gunslinger, and it started, I think, with that Buffalo game, right? And then it seemed like we kind of we saw more of it throughout the season. Even with the Eagles game, you thought, he threw his pick. I'm on an Eagles broadcast with my former co-host, and we're on Eagles broadcast, and we're just dying because we're sucking so bad. Well, he goes and throws 2 more picks, right? So he still kept winging it. So I think I liked what KOC was got out of Stafford, and I like what he got out of Kirk Cousins this year. I'm just hoping year 2, like we all do, that magic happens, no matter what we think.
Yeah, and I like the approach they're taking. I think it's at a point where, and of course, there's no guarantees. I mean, I'm the first one to be like, great, we're out of Kirk Cousins. One more year. This is the Kirk Farrell World Tour. And I was going to actually make a Kirk Farrell World Tour T-shirt, but I didn't have time. But we don't know that for a fact. And part of me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, part of me of not wanting to trade up for the Richardsons. A couple reasons. Number one, you don't have a lot of picks right now. Now, can Kwesi wheel and deal and move down and probably. I mean, there's some talk about being able to dump Dalvin, Zadarius for some picks, probably day 3 picks, but whatever. Either way, if you invest a lot into a quarterback when you already have an expensive quarterback on your roster, regardless of his cap hit, he's expensive. What are you doing to your defense? Like, you do have to feed the defense. You do have to look for new interior alignment. I'm sorry, but Ed Ingram ain't it. And I don't think Ezra Cleveland has got much more of a lifespan in Minnesota either. They're narrow.
He's being misused. He should be he should be like a right tackle somewhere.
Yeah, they just don't have the bulk to play inside. And that's the thing with Bradbury. That's why he gets destroyed by Dexter Lawrence types. But investing that much into the quarterback now in the draft does not make a lot of sense. Next year, if you do decide we're done with Kirk, enjoy time in San Francisco, Drake May, Caleb Williams, well, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. What does it take to move up?
Well, this is 2 guests in a row that I've had say the exact same thing as me. Is I think the right play is go after the quarterback next year, not this year. But is that what you're thinking? You like the class next year, because they're not coming out of the blue, right? There's a lot of established quarterbacks like they have had success. You're not going to have a 1 year of Anthony Richardson at the top of the draft. You may get that guy. But right now, it's a bunch of established guys that are going to be coming out in 2024.
Richardson makes a ton of sense for the Raiders. They just brought in Garoppolo. I think it's like a shorter-term deal, but it's not a one-year deal.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, because Richardson needs a couple years. I mean, the guy barely started in college, and he is really rough around the edges. Super talented, but he's really, really rough around the edges. And you throw him out there now or maybe even next year, you're probably setting him up to fail. So if I were an NFL team, I would want 2 years of Anthony Richardson at a minimum. It may be year 2, he kind of breaks through, but watching, learning, be patient. And you've got 3 years of him still under a rookie contract to continue to build. That's me.
Yeah, he's got a good head on. I think Anthony Richards I saw his interviews. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I don't know if he's necessarily a student in the game. Now, there's a guy you're not too excited about, DTR, and you're not excited about Hendon Hooker. Now, I think DTR, based on a video, he actually did a reaction video 2 years ago of the QB school doing a video on him, and he seemed like he knew football. And he has athletic ability, so I almost feel like that is a guy, if he's in the third day or late second day or early third day, that he might be a guy to take a chance on, and we haven't risked too much, especially if we traded down and got more picks. Is he a guy you would take a look at in a later round, or do you want to avoid taking a quarterback this year?
I don't know. I wouldn't avoid taking a quarterback per se. I'm a big best player available guy. I think I look at the players that the Vikings have hit on since I became a fan, and they tend to do a better job with BPAs. AP wasn't a need at the time they drafted. They just brought in Chet Taylor, who was serviceable. Percy Harvin wasn't a need. They're like, we'll figure out a way to make this guy do something in our offense, and they hit on him. I mean, what's the BP? And that's why the first round is going to be so interesting, because we know how Kwesi likes to look at things. I think he's very, as far as value, he's a big value guy, right? So when they get to that point, if they don't already make a trade going into the day before the pick comes, when that pick is up, what's the move? I mean, who's on the board? Is that best player available that you're willing to go out and grab, regardless of their position? You're just going to make it work. Or are you picking up the phone because, hey, there's a best player out there, not really that high on him though. Let's go ahead and jump down. Maybe we can gain a couple second round picks instead of picking in the first round. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of a trade down guy right now. And I guess that's probably my preference. But it also seems like something that's more likely. Just the way this offseason has gone, it seems like they are attacking 2023 and trying to maximize 2023 with the way they've manipulated the cap around these signings. I mean, between Lowry, Davenport, Murphy, and Oliver, all four of those guys combined for 13.4 to the 2023 cap.
I'm like, did you
that's well
expect any of this, Johnny? Did you expect any of this? I thought it was gonna be the quiet ho-hum offseason, and we signed like 15 free agents.
Right. No, and I think for that reason, it probably makes more sense to accumulate more draft picks, get the rest of this roster the best you can around Kirk, because it seems like they are like, all right, and I applaud Kwesi and KOC for this approach. They're not tethering themselves to Kirk past 2023. If they need to cut bait after 2023, or they feel it's the right thing to cut bait after 2023, they're in a position to do so. But I think for that reason too, they're going to see what they can do in 2023. I think they see a weak NFC. They like the change of pace that Flores is going to bring. They like the talent on the roster. They retained a lot more of the leaders in the locker room than a lot of people thought. Re-signing CJ Ham, re-signing Alexander Madison, Delvin Cook still being on the roster might be a draft day trade. The Smith restructure, like they didn't blow it up, and I think the way they've attacked free agency is probably going to reflect, or vice versa. The way they attack the draft is probably going to reflect the way they attacked free agency, and they're going to go for it this year and kind of see where that leaves them, and wherever that leaves them, they're going to have the flexibility to pivot one way or the other. And Kwesi will say he's always thinking 2-year window when he's making these moves. So I think whether or not they draft a quarterback this year, if it's a developmental guy, if they go up and get their guy with future picks, one way or the other, they're going to field the best team they can this year and kind of see where everything falls after that. And that's just kind of the way I'm reading it, I suppose. But, hey, if they go up and get AR, they go up and get Levis, I'm probably spending 4 months pretty damn hopeful and pretty damn just putting as much confidence as I can into O'Connell and Kwesi and the way they identified whoever their guy is to usurp Kirk at some point.
They're setting themselves up for a lot of options in the 2024 offseason.
Right.
By clearing cap, and dead money's a thing, but every team I think at this point is acceptable. It lives with an acceptable amount of dead money, regardless of what players it comes from. So
we didn't always have a lot of dead money. We were up against the cap, but we weren't have a lot of dead money until Spielman tried to save his job.
Yep. But if
I just have one comment about the quarterback situation, then I want to move on and ask you. I told you 20, 30 minutes before I lied. I still got you on because who knows what you're going to be like when you're on the show. So I do the preface 20 to 30 minutes. But you've been great, so I'm like, hey, let's do that. We normally go at least an hour, but you don't need to stand the whole time.
Too, yeah.
I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. You've been great. I think we drafted quarterback this year. Why? Because we lost our. There was contract negotiations. They did not meet and do an extension. I think it was going to happen 1 year if it was the Vikings' choice. It wasn't. They said, okay, let's go to the draft. If they come out of this draft without a quarterback, Kirk Cousins has got all the leverage, and you might be seeing, you might see a little longer extension than you wanted, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I think there is a quarterback coming out of this draft, and then that way they can, see him a little bit, see who they got, and if they got a developmental guy, they're probably going, okay, we need to sign Kirk for another year. If they got a guy that they think they can, they're counting on and they traded up to get, then they're going to say, hey, play out the contract. That's the way I felt about it.
And even if they get whoever they get on the roster, if there's a young quarterback that they can at least bluff to the league that they're confident in rolling with, then they have more leverage in a 2024 trade up if that's the case. They're not, all right, Kirk walked. We've got Nick Mullins, and every GM and their mom knows that we need to get a quarterback in this draft. And Kwesi has said too, you never want to be the team that goes into the draft needing a quarterback, just because you're out all your leverage right there. And
John, you
really tax you.
You made a big point about we didn't need Adrian Peterson, right? Well, you're for best player available. I think all of us are, and I think Kwesi kind of set us up for that so far with the offseason moves. Now we do have needs. I think you mentioned interior line. You can always improve that for sure. And my big thing is interior defensive line, because we did not get a push up the middle. Guys could step up all day and deliver that ball. They could step up, and we had the edge rushers, right? I don't know how many times we saw our two edge rushers miss the quarterback because he could step up no problem. We would have had sacks coming out of our ears if we just had some sort of push up the middle. Now, however, if a big time receiver's there, that we can get that sure number two. Well, nobody's sure, but get that guy that we think could be number two for Justin Jefferson is Robin, or just another big time player that we just can't pass up. You want to do that, or are you feeling like, hey, let's trade down and accumulate picks? Is there a guy out there that you like, that, let's say, not a quarterback, that you would say, hey, if he's there, let's take him?
So trading down may be a necessary evil for the sake of quantity, right. But a first round pick historically is better than a second round pick in talent. Okay, we've seen this before. Spielman was famous for this. Stockpiling like late round picks turned out to be nothing. I mean, we had a recent year where a bunch of third round picks didn't amount to anything. None of them are on the roster anymore.
So kickers in the 5th round.
Right. Now, Dylan in the chat keeps bringing up Brian Branch. Interesting. I can see that happening. Okay, last year I didn't think there was a chance in hell Kyle Hamilton would be available to the Vikings where they picked, and it happened. Now, Kwesi chose to trade down. Hamilton was probably the best player available. Does Kwesi make that same decision this year? I don't think so. Could you give Branch, give Flores Branch, a guy who he's a safety right out of Alabama, but they had him all over the field. And I think he even moonlighted at the star position at times for Alabama. So it's kind of playing like a big nickel / slot corner type. That's something that's interesting. And then for a secondary that's been just awful it feels like forever now. Adding Byron Murphy, and then you throw Brian Branch out there. You think Scene's going to be healthy. We've got old reliable Harry out there. Like, sweet Jesus, I'd be excited about that. And then you don't have a second round pick, but in that third round pick, are you able to grab at that point, I don't even really care. I'm so excited about Branch. Go ahead and take Dorial Thompson-Robinson, or maybe Hendon Hooker really is a third round pick. We're seeing like a lot of late buzz for him. Maybe even going in the first for that whole extra year of the contract bit, but I don't know. I don't really care who you pick in round 3 at that point.
Yeah, I'd love Branch, and I think it turns with Scene coming back healthy, like you mentioned. I think it turns what was a huge weakness on this defense, which is the apex of the defense on the weak side or the strong side, into a strength suddenly. Whether that's Scene rolling down in the big nickel. I mean, you can play a split safety look with Scene and Branch, and have Harrison rolling down in the overhang. Like, that all of a sudden gives you a lot of flexibility, gives you, more viable chess pieces to keep the offense off guard. And that's the one thing that offenses never were last year. They always felt like the ball was in their court, I think, and that they kind of had us figured out. And it was really if the defense executed as well as they possibly could on a play, then we had a decent chance. But they weren't up to speed either. If there was a misstep, if there was a slow reaction, they were getting absolutely fried. And it was middle field open like 45% of the time last year. And that seems low, honestly, for what it looked like on the field. So I think you'll see a lot more, and Branch would be perfect for this. You'll see a lot more single high and even if it rolls into a cover 2, cover 4, you're at least getting that bluff at the line and making the quarterback guess a little bit pre-snap, which is all we can really ask for at this point. And Branch would be awesome for that. Or, sure Murphy is a good slot corner. You see him shadow. He can play on the boundary though, and Branch might be your starting nickel corner for a lot of it. And kind of allow Harry to age out gracefully and then split safety with him and Scene eventually. I think that would be an awesome pick. And I think if he's either at 23, that's probably a guy worth taking.
How do you feel about, John, how do you feel about the draft? Even though, Scene got hurt, Booth got hurt, but do you feel like, hey, year 2, we're going to finally see what he saw in these players? And, Evans played above his position in the draft. So where do you feel like that draft class is going to be?
Let me cover this up. So I wasn't a huge fan of the class. I didn't get passing up Kyle Hamilton. I just think he's a really special player.
The 3 guys I wanted went 12, 13, and 14 when I traded down.
The same reasons I just talked about with Branch.
Exactly.
Gonna do it all. Yeah.
Exactly. And how much would we have benefited from having a Hamilton out there last, even as a rookie on the learning curve? I mean, how much we'd have benefited from having him out there? And listen, I don't know. I understand they probably saw something in Ingram that he was a reach. Ingram was a reach. I know he's just getting started, but sometimes the alignment, it's not a good thing when they're stepping on the quarterback's foot like 9 times in a season and blowing up plays. It's just weird. And I hope a Caleb Evans. I think we have this weird thing with Vikings fans. We tend to get really excited over a player because we're just used to seeing such crap at the position for so long. So a guy like Duke Shelley comes in, or a Caleb Evans comes in, or even to some extent Dantzler went through this period where they had some decent games, and maybe they played sometimes a little above their skill level at times, and then we just get we kind of overrate them. Like, oh my God, we need this player. Like, I don't understand why people are so upset we didn't bring Duke Shelley back. And I don't understand why Caleb Evans is on social media like a 15-year-old girl. It's weird. I'm always sketchy about players that constantly post inspirational things or cryptic tweets about we don't know what they got, or they're on the way back. It's just
the eyeballs emoji all the time.
Yeah, dude. If you have to if you really have to let us know, then are you really that good? I don't know.
Tell us how you feel about Diggs.
I'm
Does talent overcome the cryptic tweets and shit like that?
I'm so upset about Diggs because again, the Minnesota Miracle, the Minneapolis Miracle. It's a little tarnished, just because of that divorce. It's a little bit.
I mean, he was not showing up to practice, to meetings the next year, and we went to the playoffs that year.
Right, and and the same thing. It's unfair if anybody's out there and they're out there that look at JJ and go, "Oh my God, get rid of him. He's a Diggs 2.0." That's not fair.
I don't feel like he's that. Do you?
No, he's adopting a personality because he's an NFL superstar. That's what they do. But he is again. You know what? We should thank Diggs. We should put Diggs in the Ring of Honor. Because of him, we landed JJ, and JJ is one of the best players in the league, hands down.
Yeah, he's a generational talent. I think.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I think honestly, he's playing above his athletic ability. I think he's playing. He's his route running, everything, his effort, the catches he made last year were ridiculous. He's he's playing above what anybody thought he was going to do.
Most teams thought he was nothing more than a slot receiver.
Yeah, I mean, when you got Jamar Chase and what the hell's the kid's name who went to Carolina? Terrace Marshall.
Oh, Terrace Marshall. Yeah.
Those guys are going to play on the outside, and he's just going to fit in where he fits in. And he can operate at the X. He can come out of the slot. That's one of the I think we'll always kind of remember that draft take of he's just a slot receiver when we think back to him falling to us there.
This one's for you. It's a compliment to you. Gotta tell you, Dave, you should look at getting more Twitter trolls on your show. That guy knows how to pick pick the good comments. So hey, that's a compliment. Hey, I try to get Skull Mafia to come on. He's a little gun shy, but yeah, hell yeah, I'd try to bring anybody on. He's just the first one to ever take my come on. I didn't know what I was gonna like, let me get him. Let me show some tweets. And oh man, that's not what I'm about. I'm bringing everybody on. Hopefully you'll come on again pretty soon. Is there any
oh, go ahead.
Is there any no, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, and it's different on a real show too. Vikings fans are just like a bunch of parents and step parents to the Vikings. They can bicker about stuff and disagree, but all the parties know that it's because they want the best for the team.
It's part of being a fanatic, right? Fanatic. We're absolutely insane. So we tweet shit when we're pissed. I mean, you can't tweet in the middle of a game because it's not going well. It's going to be ugly, right? That's why I think we all get a kick out of watching, Jackie on she's on TikTok. I mean, I don't watch TikTok, but her stuff bleeds over to like Instagram, and because she's all of us watching these games with her. What the fuck?
Oh, are you talking about that lady in her like 60s?
Yeah,
just going nuts.
Gritty grandma.
Yeah, it was pounding.
Oh, we had Gritty Grandma on who was dancing on the. Did you see that, Johnny? I had her on.
No,
I brought Gritty Grandma on.
Oh, that's sick. No, I missed that.
Yeah,
one.
She has terrible cell phone reception out there. You seen the Gritty Grandma that was doing, out on the lake? Yeah. I brought her on my show. Yeah, I brought her on my show. It was tough, man. It was tough. She was in and out. But hey, I got her on.
And this is Vikings fans that are out there like, hey, Kirk Cousins is trash. They know he's not trash. Is he not the solution for a lot of us? Yes, but he's not trash. I mean, we can argue was he top 10, top 12, top 15, who gives a shit. He's not trash, but people say those things when they're pissed, right? We all get angry. That's what we do as fans. To me personally, and I'm sorry because I know you all are out there, the most annoying fans to me are the ones who watch a game like that Giants game or 2019 Eagles, destroy the Vikings, or the San Francisco game or 2017 against the Eagles, 2019 against the 49ers.
49ers.
Yep, embarrassed. And then those fans immediately jump on social media and go, I'm a Vikings fan no matter what. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, we all are, okay? But we need to be pissed right now. We need to deserve better. Or we need to demand better. We deserve better. Like, don't be out there all optimistic and giddy and enjoy the ride.
I go radio silent. And then now I have a YouTube channel. Now I have to actually force myself to go do a post-game show. And to see I want to get away. If I see a loss, I just want to get away.
I know. And then you see
I
all
don't
the
want to turn on the
TV,
like, man.
Damn it.
You remember, I can't remember what season it was, like 2015 maybe, or it was the season before, the 3-win season, before we drafted Knucklehead to play left tackle. It was a 3-win season. It was the season, like, listening to old Paul Allen. I used to be a big Paul Allen fan because of just, the way he calls games. And I love that he's a homer. But he was so, disappointed. And he was like thrashing the organization. Like, they got to do something. This is ridiculous. Fans deserve better. As like the final snap during that game, whoever was taking a knee to end that game, a 3-win season, that was me. That channel, like, that's how I feel. And that's why I love that guy. Now he's a little more corporate and a little more like everything's positive. But yeah, that's kind of like
it was the Leslie Frazier 3-win season. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it was the year before.
Because we brought him back, right? And he won 8 games, and then we fired him 2 years later, I think.
Yeah, this was the year before they drafted Khalil to play left tackle, and it was that 3-win season.
Now his wife's a TikTok star. She still goes by his last name. I don't know if you guys know that. Or YouTube star. Yeah, she won a Sports Illustrated model contest, and now she's a big YouTube Twitter star. She's always showing up, and she divorced him. Of course, she got famous and divorced him.
Khalil or Frazier?
Khalil.
Oh, okay.
Khalil. Yeah, there's a YouTube star named, her last name's Khalil, and she is the ex-wife of Matt Khalil. So.
Yeah, I hope Khalil was more interested in his marriage than he was playing football, because that dude.
Yeah.
Story about how they didn't think he really wanted to play. It's like, That's sad given his talent.
And then fans were calling him out, when he was walking into practice. But and he made the Pro Bowl his first year, right? So we had all these expectations.
Yeah, he was super talented. It's sad
And
because
we drafted him in the top 10, I think, right? Like third.
He was third overall. I think he was third overall. Yeah.
I thought maybe that was the year that we traded down one spot, got like a third round pick, and then we took him.
He's either third or fourth overall. Yeah,
it was something.
And I feel like that was a season where we went through John David Booty at quarterback, and I mean, there's also, and this is why I understand why some folks are, especially some of the fans who've been around a lot longer than I have with the Vikings, are, hey, Kirk, I'm content because it's just been a long history of just shit at the position. I get it.
So I'm one of those guys that's I'm 49, so I'm, not, a little older than you, and I don't remember us being so stable at quarterback. Yeah. I mean, Wade Wilson and Brad Johnson got pretty good win percentages, but they didn't play a whole lot of games. This is the first Kirk Cousins playing over 50 games and having a actual, a win percentage is, reaching 60% is like a never heard of that. We have all these fond memories of Dante Culpepper, and he's 45% winning percentage. He had some dog shit years.
Yeah, and Culpepper probably benefited a lot from who he had to throw to. I mean, I feel like.
Well, I give him credit. His best year, Randy Moss was hurt most of the season.
That's true.
His leading receiver was his tight end.
That's
when
true.
He led the league in.
So I give him credit for that.
03?
Led the league. I forget. I think it was 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I remember.
It was one of Peyton's MVP years.
Yeah, it was Peyton's MVP because he threw for like 12 touchdowns the last 3 games of the season and just surpassed Culpepper. Otherwise, he would have probably saw Culpepper win the MVP that year. NFL ranked it at top 10 quarterback seasons of all time. I saw at one point. It was kind of crazy that we had a guy like that, and I still rank it as the number 1 quarterback. Well, I'd rank it second behind 1975, but you could argue both. But yeah, well, people got this memory of Dante Culpepper and how they just had this fond memories of him, and I'm like, yeah, he had like 2 good seasons, and then the rest were like he had like 7.
That's another guy. If
led the league in fumbles a couple of years, and
that's another guy. If Twitter was around, like they'd have been going nuts on Culpepper too, because he was very frustrating at times. Fumbles. The trucking linebackers, which is sick, but like there's also kind of we got to reel it in a little bit. That's taking a lot of risks. I think that would have been he would have been a pretty divisive Vikings Twitter quarterback as well.
Yeah, so, I didn't realize until I started joining Facebook clubs that there was Vikings fans that were pretty upset all the time. Oh yeah, Facebook is not a friendly place for. There's some Facebook fan clubs that got like 30,000 people on them, and I post all of them. And I mean, I had a guy telling me all sorts of shit about my family, DMing me and shit like that, and making fun of my kid. I'm like, are you serious? We're both wearing freaking purple here. All I did was post, hey, I think so-and-so is going to have a good year this year. I don't think I even deserve to die.
This is why I got off of Facebook. Facebook, it was interesting for a while. Facebook's interesting to see who doesn't age well that you grew up with. People have their lot. I
used to date her? What?
Yeah, right. There's people who are more. There's always somebody who's more miserable than you. People have, they play out their marriage problems using memes. It's weird, right? But Facebook got to the point where it got so negative. That's coming from me. It got so negative. And then you add the personal connection to it because your profile is attached to it. See, Twitter, you can go on there and just be a total asshat because you're not Nick Mullins and you're Zim Reapers and nobody knows who you are. And
now they know,
good, right?
Now they know. I got your name and your location. So we're going to narrow it down. We're going to get 4chan on this and find out where you're at and send everybody over there. I'm just kidding.
We're pushing. What are you doing down in Glory Roadville, down in El Paso?
Work. It's work.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yep. I'm here for a month for work. So I travel a lot for my job. So quick, I've seen the Vikings play more in visiting stadiums than I've seen them in Minnesota. Seen him everywhere. I saw Kirk Cousins' first game in uniform. It was preseason with the Vikings. They played at Denver. I saw him there. I was the Tennessee. I have a lot of weird, like, so again, the Minneapolis Miracle. I went to the Tennessee game the week, after Teddy's leg fell off. The Sean Hill start? I was at that game, which, by the way, great people. Nashville. There's a Nashville Norseman Vikings fan club.
I
Awesome.
belong to that one. That's where I watched the 2009 game.
Yep.
I lived in Nashville for 12 years.
Awesome people. So Tony. Tony's a great dude.
Yeah.
Tony Pagel. And
he actually got to announce the 6th pick of the draft when it was in Nashville.
Yep. And they got that game. They got Mark Wilf, and this is why I like. I mean, the Wilfs frustrate me at times, like a lot of fans, but they do a good job. I mean, Mark Wilf stopped by the tailgate we had and shook hands with the fans and took pictures with us, and so that was pretty cool.
Tony came down to Miami for the game. He had a tent set up. He came to the Friday pregame, so I got to see him there too.
Yeah. No, the Nashville.
He was one of the. You remember the COVID draft when they had the fans in the background? He was one of the guys back there.
The COVID draft they were doing on ABC. On ABC, they were doing like little cut. They're like feeder. I think they call them bumpers in the industry. Bumpers, kind of like a little thing they play coming off a commercial that leads back into the draft. And they had fans that year record and submit videos, and they were kind of putting them together, certain videos that were leading into a team's picks. So you'll see my mug on there a couple times because I made the cut, and I actually was the last person to go, it's time. And I took my drink from my ale horn, and then bang, Justin Jefferson becomes a Viking. So you're welcome. I'll take credit.
I was going to say, you just heard it here. John Fye actually made the pick and got Justin Jefferson.
You're welcome.
Who are you wanting that pick? Was it Justin?
No, it wasn't.
Was it Jalen Reagor? Because Purple for the Win wanted Jalen Reagor.
I'm trying to think who I wanted. I don't even. I remember now because they had 2 first-round picks. So we got the pick that I wanted, RIP, but it wasn't the spot I wanted him. Put it that way. Yeah. Poor guy.
Were you one of the guys that wanted to go up and get Justin Fields and we got Darisaw instead? No. Okay. I was ecstatic when we drafted Darisaw. Justin Jefferson, I thought, oh God, we got a really good receiver. I had no idea he'd become a world phenomenon.
Well, I mean, you're at a low. So with Fields, I was at a low point with Kirk. So I'm like, look, go get a mobile quarterback who knows what he can do. I'm just excited about the new thing, the new toy. Am I glad they drafted Darisaw? Absolutely. Nothing exciting.
Yeah, everybody I've asked so far, would you rather have Fields or Darisaw right now? And not every single one to a man said Darisaw.
Yeah, so. Darisaw is probably the first left tackle we've had that actually wants to play football. I mean, McKinney was great, but he lost. McKinney got to a weird point where he kind of fell out of love with the game, but I think Darisaw is.
It's funny too because you kind of crack on Dustin Baker a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, he does a show with McKinney.
Yes, he does. I believe. Yeah, I believe.
And he's actually going to be on Purple for the Win. And I brought him on twice on my show. He didn't come on with us. He came on my other shows, right?
Yes.
But he's going to be live on Purple Pocket Podcast at 9:30 in 15 minutes with Rap. So if you want to go heckle him over there live, you can.
He is a passive aggressive troll. I'm onto him.
Well, that's Minnesota. That's Midwest.
He drops his little numbers tweets. He knows what he's doing. He drops his little numbers tweets.
So people get on him like I saw people just freak out on him about being a Kirk stan, but he's been on my show wanting to move on. Like he wants this to be his last year. Yeah. So he goes on there and he plays it both ways. I think that's what you're trying to say.
That's what he does. That's why I love about Twitter. Twitter is the most entertaining. You remember when, and I don't want to get political, but Joe Biden got elected and people started sending like political complaints to Joe Budden on purpose, right? And people were like, "You're sending it to the wrong Joe. That's not the president. That's the rapper." It's like you're ruining the bit. You are ruining the bit. Like half of Twitter is like, yeah, I love it.
What up,
we've had you on quite a long time here. And any last words about what's your prognostication? Anything you want to spit out there? Make sure you go to @ZimReapers. Yeah, it's in the description below.
I tweet a lot of dumb shit.
He does.
Yep. So y'all can come find me, chirp me up. I don't care. Listen, I am the hopeless pessimist. I swear, win one freaking Super Bowl, I will never watch another down of NFL football again. Just one. I'm going out on top. That's it. One trophy. I'll buy all the swag. I'll buy all the shit, and then I'm never watching again.
I did a poll once where would you if the Vikings would win 3 Super Bowls, would you be willing to die at 50? If they would win 2 Super Bowls, would you be willing to die at 60? And if they won 1 Super Bowl, would you die at 70? And there was people that chose, most people chose they were willing to die at 70. Or no, 4 choice was not at all, and nobody chose that. So they were willing to die at 70. Like 60% of the people were willing to die at 70 if we could just win 1 Super Bowl.
It's a good life.
Insanity.
That's a good life. It's enough time to set my kids up. Yeah, I'd do 70.
I don't know, man.
70. Wow.
70. That's 20 years away, 21 years away, man. I don't know.
The alternative. I don't know. Yeah,
my kid would be 28. I guess he'd be all right. I don't know. Okay.
Mary said she'd die right now.
I don't know. We do not know how old Mary Fisk is, but I imagine a woman in an apron pulling cookies for us with nice little messages on them for our birthday. That's how I feel like Mary Fisk.
You die at 70.
We lost you there. What were you saying? We lost you. I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
The question is to be. Sorry. The question. You die at 70, but you're reincarnated as a Packers fan.
Oh, fuck no.
That's a tough
knowingly? Like you had to choose that?
I think Bills fans are kind of the Vikings fans counterpart. All the like Bills Twitter people. I have great stuff. I do a show with a Bills guy on Tuesdays. I think they get us.
Yeah, I think we got kind of a camaraderie, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they get snow, they get cold, they get Super Bowl losses.
Well, like we were hoping, I think all of us were kind of hoping that we'd see a Bills-Vikings Super Bowl this year. That would have been pretty awesome. But hey, we're up against it, man. We've had you on a little long. We're probably going to let you go and just address some last few comments. But hey, man, it's been a pleasure. If you're willing to come on again, I'm going to ask you. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, all right, man. Come back on.
All right. Be a little nice to me on Twitter from now on. Fuck, man.
No, we got to keep it.
All right.
Yeah.
Later, man. Let's see ya.
Thanks.
Dude calls me a fucking idiot on Twitter, and I ask him to come on.
No, that was.
Well, he generically said it. He not necessarily directed at me, but it shortly after we had a back and forth. So I assumed he was meaning me because I was the only one on Twitter talking about Ponder. But yeah, I was glad to have him on. We probably could have went more in depth on college players. He seemed like he knew his stuff. You two could have probably talked all day about that. But
yeah, it was good shit.
But any last words for you, man?
There was
pass on being dead. We got one guy that doesn't want to die. McAndrews, I want you to live too, man. I want you to live too.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, you know what? I'll just say
thanks, Dylan.
Let's push the Brian Branch agenda. Let's push the Keanu Benton agenda. Let's push the Mozzie Smith agenda. Emmanuel Forbes might fall a lot farther than he should. Let's push that agenda. And I think that's all I got.
I'm going to tell you, man, I think we're going to have something special this year. I am totally on the Flores train after not wanting him to be. I actually did a video saying, hey, I wouldn't hate myself if we got him, but I was not. I don't know why he was having other people call the defensive plays, but when he did, he was amazing. I love what they're doing to put weapons around him. Davenport is a good player. Don't let the half sack fool you. I think
pressure rate. Look at pass rush win rate.
I am all
good call, Dylan.
The stuff we're putting together, we're going to use people right this year. Those players didn't get shit all of a sudden. You cannot, if you're confused, you cannot play fast. We're going to play fast. We're going to cause turnovers. And our offense has got a second year with KOC with almost the same exact offense. We're only losing production from a guy that got 700 yards and was on the downside of his career. And we have a draft to pull someone exciting out of this. And as usual, love to Jalen Naylor, our future number 2 wide receiver. I love him, man. He doesn't know this. What were you saying?
Oh, hey, and if Dalvin gets traded, we've got an interview with the starting running back's dad.
Yeah, we got that on the books. I interviewed him twice. He'll come back, and we got the starting running back's dad telling us all about it. Yep. And he did put a nugget out there, and someone actually used me as a source, saying that Kirk Cousins went to bat to keep him on the team. So so we have a source. We were sourced. I think it was Vikings Wire, something like that. I don't know. Someone sourced me. First time I ever seen that. So I'm big time on everybody now. I was a source. Sir. All right. that was it, guys. Thanks for showing. I brought my first Twitter troll, and he wasn't much of a troll when you got him on video, but he was pretty awesome. I'm glad to have him on. I could have took this in an entirely different direction, but I think I made the right choice. Skull Vikings. See you next time. We're out.